Hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's lunch? Good, good, excellent. Welcome to our annual luncheon, Methodists in New Directions. My name is Jason Dobney. I'm Minister of Music at Memorial United Methodist Church in White Plains. Woo! And I'm also the Vice Chair of MIND, and it's my pleasure to be your MC for the afternoon. And we have much to do today, very exciting lunch. It's very great to have you all here. I just arrived on the train this morning from Manhattan. I hear that you've all done wonderful work in legislative sessions yesterday, but I'm going to tell you that the work we do here at Annual Conference is short. It's 3 days, and we have to take that work home and walk that walk in our local congregations. So let's take all that energy home, and we'll hear more about that in a minute. I have a little bit of business, and I wanted to start by asking all of the steering committee members that we have to please stand up. Thank you. These are the folks that work all year round. Thank you very much. Also, you'll notice many purple t-shirts. If you don't have one, I'm going to invite you to think about getting one. We're selling them at the desk. In fact, you can buy them here. If you would like to buy a t-shirt, there are some forms. Can those that have t-shirt forms stand up? So we're selling them at the luncheon for $15. That's a little bit of a break, $15. And if you can find one of those and give them the money, they'll give you a form so you can get your t-shirt. This is very important. As a gay person that's not a member of Annual Conference, when I come and I see a purple t-shirt, I know that I have a friend and an ally. So please, even if you have 5 at home, think about what that means to us gay people. I also wanted to make a plug for a very big national event coming up in a couple months. It's called Gather at the River, happening in San Antonio, Texas. It's Reconciling Ministries Network and Methodist Federation for Social Action are having a joint meeting. Sarah Thompson Tweedy, our chairperson, is going to be speaking there. Vicki Flippin will be one of the MCs. There should be a brochure on your table. I'd love to have you, there you go, there's Paul's got one. Take a look at that and think about how you can maybe come with us there. So I'd like to invite now Michael Cobb to the stage to talk to us about membership.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Michael Cobb, and I wanted to call your attention to these colorful envelopes that are on the table. Everyone see those? So Jason was right. Membership is one of the things I want to talk about. Actually, there's 3 things that I wanted to mention to you, and there's 3 different ways that you would be able to help support MIND's work. One of them, and you'll see on the envelopes, is to join MIND. We ask for $15 for dues, more if you can afford it, less if you can't. But really, joining at any level is critical because it lets us demonstrate that this is not an isolated thing, that we are a movement, we are growing, and we take this very seriously. So if you're able to join, please do. The second thing that you could do, if you're already a member, is if you wanted to make just a general offering to MIND of anything that you have. We use the money for all sorts of things to, as Jason said, keep this energy going that we have for the entire year. And then a third thing that you would be able to do is to help support this luncheon. And what I mean by that is that this is one of our biggest events of the year. It's one of our most visible events of the year. And we always pack this room full. Now this year, one of the things that we did was ordered some additional lunches. We wanted to make sure that people who had never been here before, were not part of MIND, had never been to an annual conference before, were welcome and able to participate. So we got some additional food to make that happen. The third thing you can do is to help cover the costs of that. So we're looking to raise about $500 because the prices of these went up. But if there's any opportunity that you would have to donate a little bit of money to help cover someone else's lunch, someone who is new to this movement, to let them know that we are glad they're here and they're glad to be a part of it, that would be spectacular. So thank you so much. If you are already a member and you've already been doing things to support, feel free to take an envelope and give it to someone that you would like to see get involved in this movement. Thanks very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Somerville, the treasurer of MIND. So, yes, definitely use those envelopes. Sarah Thompson-Tweedy is our beloved chairperson of MIND. She is not here today because she and her wife, Kristen, are attending, I think it's like a 3rd grade graduation. Kindergarten. And she agonized over whether to do this, but we said to her, go, go. And it's just one of those things parents do. But I want to keep reminding people, as I did in the legislative session, that just to be able to say these natural things about someone who happens to be a woman married to a woman or a man to a man is something we can do, that very few of our clergy feel comfortable and safe enough to do. And we've got to get to the point where it's just the normal life. That's what we got to get to. I want to say a couple things. We will be returning after this to the plenary to deal with legislation. We were very pleased with the results of the Section 3 voting yesterday, but for any of you who have not carefully read the legislation or were not at Section 3, I want to read a portion of one of the items that is on the consent calendar, bringing to reality our vision of a beloved and just community. Whereas the New York Annual Conference last year declared itself to be a place where LGBTQI persons can find safe space and arena for the expression and celebration of their individual gifts in service and ministry, enjoy the blessings of family and marriage, and participate fully, openly, and equally in the full life of the church. That's the whereas. That was last year. And whereas this declaration invites and challenges the annual conference to manifest this spirit of celebration and equality across the spectrum of its ministries, therefore be it resolved, the New York Annual Conference declares itself to be in solidarity with and in support of LGBTQI laypersons, clergy, candidates for ministry, and their families, and regards as its sacred duty the protection of their full and equal participation in the life of the church. And be it further resolved, the New York Annual Conference calls upon all of its constituent organizations, committees, and leaders to carry out their ministries in ways that reflect the self-understanding of the annual conference as a place of safety, equality, and welcome for LGBTQI laypersons, clergy, candidates for ministry, and their families. Don't clap, do something. This is something that there's not an inevitability. Words can be put on a page, resolutions can be passed. It is going to take very dedicated work so that this becomes a lived reality and not just a nice resolution that was passed. So go back to your local churches, talk to people, make sure others are aware that we have made this declaration. If your congregation hasn't already begun some kind of formal process, at least a conversation, start the conversation and we can help you with resources. Each of us has something that we can do, and that's the important thing to leave here with that consciousness. And it is exciting to think that this annual conference could become a model for how we might justly act in this distorted ecclesiological situation we got ourselves in. So we'll turn it over to my friend. Did you notice how the other guy, Michael, leapt up onto the stage?
Yes.
You ran up onto the stage.
Yes.
And I just came slowly.
Why swim like a dead fish in an ocean of grace, right? Not that you're a dead fish, absolutely not. Good afternoon. I have the great honor and privilege to introduce my beloved sister and colleague. She translates oftentimes in our work together in the executive committee and in subcommittees because I don't make sense sometimes, but she always understands me. So I have this great honor and privilege to introduce to you Reverend Dr. Althea Spencer-Miller. She's an assistant professor of New Testament at Drew University, the theological school, and you may clap, a provisional elder in the Nyack, and a minister in residence at the Church of the Village, Manhattan. You may clap again. Yes. As a same-gender loving African ancestral woman, partner to Mrs. Vivienne Potter, mother of Stephen and David, an immigrant from Jamaica, intersectionality marks her scholarship and her life. She embodies it. Her current research interests and book project in oral hermeneutics and her earlier publications reflect a keen analysis of the connections between traditional and non-traditional biblical scholarship. She is also eager to do work that connects the academy and the church, amen, with innovative approaches to biblical interpretation. Dr. Spencer-Miller's commitments to justice for social transformation integrates her life. She understands Christian commitment as grounded within a community of faith that is always restless for expressions of God's kingdom. G is dropped, kingdom. So I invite you to please give a warm welcome to Dr. Althea Spencer-Miller. Yes. And be blessed. You are blessed. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that very warm welcome. I get up here and the first thing my phone does is alert me with a ring. I have to admit that this is a challenging presentation to give. But I'm glad to be here amongst you, glad to be seeing you in the flesh, and being reminded of the warmth of your spirit, the generosity of your love, the graciousness of your welcome. It's very, very soothing, and I'm really glad to be here participating in it. Since being here, I came with a bit of a script. But since being here, the script has undergone transformation. And it's still morphing. And I forgot to thank Alex for welcoming me so enthusiastically too. Thank you very much, Alex. And we are developing a kind of a mutual interpretative alliance here. We got each other. But I'm also feeling a little bit like bird time. I'm under the influence of Michael Jackson's Rockin' Robin. At least I know Rockin' Robin through Michael Jackson. And you know, it's this guy or someone who rocks in the treetops all the day long, and all the little birdies on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, 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 Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet. And I'm thinking about Rockin' Robin because I'm also thinking about that passage in Matthew chapter 13, where there is a seed that is the smallest of all seeds. But when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. And this passage has been working my mind for a while. And you might wonder why I start here. You know, growing up in Jamaica, all the birds looked alike. I had no problem with this image of the kingdom of God. But in my years here, I've begun to realize that maybe all those birds don't look alike. And if there's a robin or a sparrow, is there also a hawk and an eagle? And do they like each other? how does the kingdom of God arrange all these little birdies? And do all the little birdies on Jaybird Street want to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet? Or do they go, shut up already? What's going on in this kingdom? That's my opening salvo to you. As we think about intersectionality. Intersectionality has been a theme important to MIND, because in the formation of MIND, there has been an understanding that the oppression of one group is usually in some way related to the oppression of other groups. And for us to function as if there is any one form of social oppression that is more important than others, or that can be overcome in isolation from others, is to indulge oneself in a waste of time and energy, a pipe dream that is not worth realizing. And I realize too, that in a sense I'm talking to the choir here. But having said that, one of the intersections that I'm bringing together today is the intersection between the church, that's us, and the society in which we live. And it's from that intersection that I confess my anxieties, which are very real in this moment, despite the fact that I know that I'm amongst friends and brothers and sisters in Christ. So pardon me, bear with me as I share some of my anxieties in this moment. Our task today is to speak to ourselves about our values. Our task is to reinstate a fundamental understanding of who we are as a people gathered under the umbrella of MIND. Who we are, our relationship to privilege and power, and how our particular Noah's Ark is populated. It's my task to tune us up, not by saying simply, keep your eye on the prize, but sustaining the primacy of a particular definition of the prize, that is, the prize of attaining a just society that is good for all, not just for some. A Jamaican proverb says, and I'm going to say it in Jamaican, finger never say look here, it always say look there. Translated, finger never points at yourself, it always points at someone else. It would be less burdensome before you today to rehearse and refute all the biblical terror texts that they use against us gay folk. It would be a relief to vent against the insults, institutionalized injustices that we bear within the United Methodist Church and in other places. It would be a joy to reprise for us that our case is just, our union is perfect, the tide is turning, victory shall be ours. And that's a paraphrase and rewording, I believe, of John Dickinson and Thomas Jefferson's conflated statement at the end of the Declaration of the Causes and the Necessity for Taking Up Arms. Our cause is just, our union is perfect. Questionable. But I'm anxious for three reasons, so finally I get to my anxieties. One is that I'm addressing us, not about them, about us. Introspection is a difficult invitation to issue. The second is that if we peel the layers of sexual and gender orientations among us, we find that we are a microcosm of the American political and social spectrum. I don't think that necessarily all of us in here vote Democrat. Oh, is that wrong? or that all of us think the Republicans are wrong on every issue, except the ones that they are wrong on. We are a people who live both in the church and in the society. Our union against homo and transphobias tenuously unites us within the United Methodist Church, but our politics, our economics, our education, our class and race are social macro structures that divide us in the society at large. It is not always true that our quest for social justice permeates to the very marrow of our patriotic bones. The dividing genera of the American tossed salad are actually present in our midst, if not in this room, in our churches that are reconciling, in our brothers and sisters, in our families, and perhaps in ourselves. The third reason then for me being anxious is that my birth certificate and passport are not American. I have been told more than once, and in many ways, that not having been enculturated American, I should not participate in discussions about America. So you have been, yep, I know it. So I'm heartened by the remainder of the Jefferson-Dickinson quote and my connection to MIND. The Jefferson-Dickinson quote ends, "Our cause is just, our union is perfect. Our internal resources are great, and if necessary, foreign assistance is undoubtedly attainable." Well, here I am living as Ruth, with my partner Vivian present, and I say to you, your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Might I add, as Ruth didn't, your problems shall be my problems, your issues shall be my issues, and as long as I resonate with some of you, I will keep speaking. I proceed with the assumption that through considerations of interconnectedness, and keep those birds on the tree for me, that through considerations of interconnectedness and interdependence, we here understand solidarities, alliances, and collaborations. So I will not remind you of our togetherness and mutual belonging. I believe indeed that those of us gathered here are not only the choir, but may I be so bold as to say that in the torment of our time, the division, the divisiveness with which our issues are addressed, those of us who form solidarities and friendships and companionships along the way with those of us who are marginalized, together, we are the grace space of the church. We are the place that is holding the repository of graciousness and godly grace for a church while it argues and debates and contests the right for us to enter into a space that they think is their grace space. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. It's a ground I am setting. When persons say they welcome gay folk into the church, sometimes it sounds to me as if they are saying that grace is held somewhere over there and we get to come in on a ticket granted to us. I'm saying to us that LGBTQ persons and their allies continuing in fellowship with the church are the manifestation of grace, and we ought not to forget it. So I'm not going to speak to you as if you are ignorant and unknowing. I want to lift up intersectionality as a politicization making politic, the social disparateness that inheres in our solidarity. Intersectionality has a political function that pulls us together and says we must work together. As such, it locates us and it examines us. Intersectionality invokes both principles of equality and equity on the one hand, and analyzes relations within and among marginal groups on the other. We will speak the language of love. We will speak the language of compassion, but we are not soft. There is a struggle. There is a battle. Lives are at stake. And if we cannot understand the politics of our common existence as a way of expressing our spirituality, we will continue as fractured human beings. And we don't need that. So intersectionality points beyond individual relationships to structural relationships. And sometimes we don't like this language, but the structures express our spirit. Imposed social groupings such as race and class can be used in legislative social engineering to divide us. So we get to fill out forms that say, how old are you? How rich are you? How educated are you? Are you single? Are you married? And then we have legal practices and policies that distribute privileges along those particular groups. And then we're separated from each other because our social life centers around the categories that we occupy. So perhaps I may never join your golf club. I might not even be able to swim in your swimming pool because we have been categorized. Intersectionality highlights these and invites us to think deeply about the claims that our lives are being engineered both civically, politically, and inside the church as a reflection of that. Understanding this enables us to know that we do share a common cause: race, immigration, sexuality, poverty, ceilings. We share a common cause in our various social groupings and in our fights. Further, intersectionality calls us to reckon with our different allegiances with and aspirations to power. Are you still there? Earl Lewis, in an article titled Constructing African Americans as Minorities, quoted Gunnar Myrdal, who interpreted the African American dream as of a time when race would not matter, when the minority would meld with the whole to form a new majority. Now that frightens me, because I fear sometimes that that is our aspiration, not just as African Americans, but as any kind of minority, to form a new majority, and sometimes without questioning the values that we are entering into. May I use an example? Remember those birds on the tree? May I use an example? Recently, the Human Rights Campaign did an internal audit of their performance as an employing organization. The internal report was exposed in an online newspaper called The Advocate. It found that transgendered people were being marginalized in the HRC office. That there was a ceiling on promotions for persons who were lesbians and of other races inside the HRC. The HRC has pledged to correct that. But what it points us to is how insidious the possibility of prejudices and biases is. How easy it is for us to bring the assumptions and mindset of the society around us, even into our struggles for justice. May I put it very, very simply and clearly? I hope. The only people in this country, the only set of persons in this country that does not have to justify its existence in some particular way is white males. You tell me what struggle white males have had, especially if they are of a certain class, especially if they are of an elite class, and how hard it is for white males of a lower class to not understand, or rather to understand, that they don't belong to the elite white male class. How does it drive violence? How does it drive prejudice? But how does the invisible specter of race and racial superiority creep among us, slither among us? Intersectionality says to us that the quest for ordination, and one of my anxieties as I did this, I don't want to turn you off of MIND's projects. What I want us to do is to be very clear that we are not just about the immediacy of these projects, that we have a larger social vision, so that ordination, welcome, affirmation are steps on a road to a larger vision of our society. A vision that says when we arrive, we are not simply replicating the pre-existing privileges. That when we arrive, folk like myself or Alex will not be looking at the back of the others, climbing the ladder to the ship. That we will just have been role players in a task meant, a project, a process meant for someone else. And we get to applaud while those others else move on. Bishop Yvette Flunder said that it's easy to talk about diversity, but to talk about inclusion, to talk about inclusivity, means having the ability to undertake and adopt the vulnerabilities of the most vulnerable. A relinquishing of privilege, at least the willingness to put privilege at risk. I want to endorse persons like my brother, Scott Somerville, who was awarded last night with the Dale and Gwen White Award for Social Justice, and all whom he represents as someone who is willing to put privilege at risk. But representing, I can't name everyone, a whole host of persons for whom that is a model. And of course, it's easy for me to talk about it. I'm black, I'm immigrant, I'm gay. I'm also Reverend Dr. Althea Spencer-Miller. And that actually means something in some places. I too have to be willing to put aside or put at risk some of the privileges I have in order to speak to you as I do. If I had not been a privileged Jamaican, I would not be here in this position. Now, that sort of turns the black thing upside down because, you know, black folk just aren't privileged. So as we think about who we are, intersectionality contains our sense of togetherness. It contains our sense of solidarity. It contains our humanity. It says to us that the sparrow should sit with the eagle and not be afraid to be eaten. It says to us that all of us are in the ark together, and we want to arrive on Mount Ararat together. But when we get there, because we are the space of grace, because we hold a vision of theological and biblical justice, because we are the servants of a Christ and of a Paul who opened the way for the mixing onto hybridity of different categories of persons, because we are that, when we arrive, the salt must taste different. The opportunities must be different. The world must look different. And that's why, Scott, and all of us on the steering committee will say, it is not enough for us to have been here. When you go home, when we go home, do something. And we will know that we have caught a glimpse of the promised land. We may not all be of the generation who will get there, but we will have sustained the vision of our intersections, the vision of our justice, and we will know that there is a promised land. And we will pave the path for every generation coming forward to view and visit and dwell in the promised land. And it will not look like the world that we have known. My prayer is for all of us, that we might keep the faith, that we might keep the light, that we might be political, that we might be spiritual, that we might be joyful, that we might be ardent, that we might be vigorous, that we might be persistent. Because even if our union is not perfect, our cause is just. And the outsiders are here to help. God bless us all.
It is our tradition to give a MIND t-shirt to our guest speakers, most of whom usually come from around the country, but this is the first time we've had someone from within the organization speak to us. So this is her complimentary t-shirt. We gave her a dispensation so she wouldn't have to wear it until this moment to show off this wonderful outfit. But she's the only one with the dispensation, so the rest of you find those t-shirt sellers. Thank you. And I think Vicki has a word for us.
I'm the closer here. Is that? Oh, goodness. Hello, Bishop. Okay, I'm closing, so I would love to have Bishop Middleton come up and give us some greetings. Please welcome Bishop Middleton.
Our speaker, Professor Spencer-Miller. Our speaker, Professor Spencer-Miller, deserved that standing ovation. I'm not at all sure I do. But what a joy it is to be with you. I am so glad you're here. This conference will never be the same because of you, and someday may be completely changed because of you. And it's not just this conference. As we were challenged, it's far more than that. And so I'm here simply to tell you, I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to the spirit that moves within you, that drives you to work for these kinds of issues. And I will do all I can to support the kinds of things you care about. God being my helper. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Bishop. And I know you may wear purple often, but we're going to assume that you're wearing it in solidarity with us today. Yes, it is. It's a very good shade. I just want to remind everyone before you head back to do something with one of these to make sure you join MIND or renew your membership. Throw as much money as you can in one of these envelopes and give it to someone who seems like they're a part of the organization. I think you figured that out so far. So I want to just take 1 minute to talk about Mind Flair. So what's the flair that we've been talking about a lot today? T-shirts. So we got a lot of t-shirts going. We also have, if you really feel weird about t-shirts, which you shouldn't, we also have buttons for sale at the Mind table back at the arena. So get a button, whether or not you have a t-shirt, please do. We have one more piece of Mind Flair at annual conference. Does anybody know what it is? Armbands, which Sparkles the Bunny is sporting here. So tomorrow at the ordination service, we will be wearing armbands to symbolize tears of joy for those who are being ordained and tears of sorrow for those who are not given that privilege in an open way in our church. And so many of you have heard people like Sarah Thompson Tweedy speak about what it means to walk into the arena and see people with armbands and feel that sense of safety, to know who your allies are, who are people you don't have to edit your story with. But I want to say a word about what it means to wear an armband as an ally. There are certain moments when you as an ally or an advocate get to show up. There are sometimes rare opportunities when you get to make someone feel safer in the room. And at the ordination service, the opportunity to wear the armband or not is one of those moments. And so I hope that you will think about it in that way. If you may feel solidarity, you may talk about solidarity, but this is what it looks like to be in solidarity. So I hope you'll wear an armband. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room is probably going to wear an armband, but I also hope that you will talk to somebody else, risk that conversation, that uncomfortable conversation, to talk to somebody else and offer them an armband as well. And to me, I think that the armband is a chance to say, even if I'm straight, I too am affected by heterosexism and heteronormativity because I am privileged by it. And the armband is a chance to disrupt that white privilege of the white robes and the white stoles of ordination. So please do take that moment, that opportunity to really stand with LGBTQI people in our midst. Thank you. Do you have any more words? All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Stand for justice in some significant way, and we'll see you tomorrow at ordination.